Currently, one of the biggest industries in the world is that of video games, and it continues to grow every day. It's estimated to reach $90 billion by the year 2020, with 2.5 billion video gamers worldwide. That's close to roughly half of the world's population. While this provides jobs and entertainment for many, it also comes with some drawbacks, namely addiction. Video games have been part of my life since around the age of 5, playing on the original Nintendo. Back then, games were simple in design and very straightforward with their objectives. Run across the level, beat some bad guys in between, and claim your prize at the end. Today is much more complex, involving critical thinking, decision making, co-op play styles, and it sometimes even involves spending additional money. The ESRB, or Entertainment Software Rating Board, are the ones in charge of rating video games to warn parents that a game could be harmful toward children, yet here lately, it feels like they have failed severely at this. The overall main point I want to discuss today is that of loot boxes and how they have become a plague to the gaming industry. A loot box, for those of you who do not know, is where they offer random rewards for real world money. Typically, this wouldn't be too bad if they didn't set it up in a way where it's completely random, making you spend more money in hopes of receiving that item you've been after. They've been around since the early 2000s, but you're seeing them in almost every game today. Major companies are leaning more towards these loot boxes and other microtransactions, which means you're not only paying $60 for the base game, you're also expected to spend more money if you want the better looking cosmetics or an advantage over the other players, such as increased money or experience. The ESRB labels gambling with two categories: real gambling and simulated gambling. Real gambling is spending real-world money in a game, which defines exactly what the loot box system is. However, they don't rate games A for adult like they should when it comes to this type of content. Simulated gambling is where you gamble in-game but only spend in-game currency. According to the ESRB website, there are 6 categories in which they label games. E for everyone, which is suited for all ages. This may contain minimal cartoon, fantasy or mild violence, and or infrequent use of mild language. E10 plus stands for everyone of the ages 10 and up. It's similar to E for everyone, but also includes suggestive themes. T for teen is suitable for ages 13 and up, containing violence, suggestive themes, crude humor, minimal blood, simulated gambling, and or infrequent use of strong language. M for mature is a rating for the ages 17 and up, containing intense violence, blood and gore, sexual content, and or strong language. A for adults only is suitable for 18 and up, which may include prolonged scenes of intense violence, graphic sexual content, and or gambling with real currency. Lastly, RP stands for rating pending, which hasn't been assigned a rating and only appears in marketing or advertising. Now that we have a clear understanding of where the ratings fall, we can begin to get a better grasp on where some games should be placed. Loot boxes are only one of the few problems with games today. Aside from them, there are other microtransactions in games, but not all of them are terrible. If you spend money to get the exact item you want, then that should be fine since you're not gambling. However, loot boxes are completely random loot with people spending thousands and even upwards to $1 million, in rare cases, to obtain items because they become addicted. Subscription games are fine as well, in my opinion. With that said, sometimes developers take it too far and release broken content for outrageous amounts of money, such as Fallout 76 subscription, Fallout First, where it was $100 a year or $13 a month, and it was basically completely unplayable, on top of an already severely broken game. Ratings when it comes to violence or sexual content or other labels should be closely looked at and adjusted properly. One of the Grand Theft Autos, for example, contained a scene of graphical sexual content in its early release and should have been rated A for adult. However, it was only rated M for mature. Later on, the developers removed that scene completely, but it makes you wonder how in-depth the people at the ESRB look into these games before rating them. Sometimes the complete opposite is the case where a game is rated M when it should have been rated T for teen. An example of this is the game Zone of the Enders, a space robot brawler game with no blood and very little violence due to it being a fighter game. This was rated M when it clearly was suitable for teens. Modern Warfare is a game that is rated M, but they depict scenes that contain suicide bombers, assassinations, war crimes, and more. I would argue that some of it could be a reason to rate it as A for adult. Games are simply not what they used to be a decade more ago. Technology is advancing, and with it, so does games. They become more realistic, more in-depth. more captivating. The ESRB has been rating games based on over a 2-decade-old rating system, and I think it's time they reevaluate how they approach these more realistic games. Big companies such as Activision, Ubisoft, Blizzard, EA, and Bethesda have been increasing microtransactions into their games every year and will continue to do so. They know it's a form of gambling, but they just don't care due to greed. It also feels like they're sacrificing making games with great content because they focus more on loot boxes and other ways to take more of your money. The worst part is some loot boxes, if not all, are rigged. In Call of Duty's mobile game, it was tested and proven that their loot box was rigged. It took anywhere up to $100 to spin and cost overall $250 to finally obtain the items everyone wanted, which were 2 cosmetic items. YouTubers came together to spend this amount of money simply to see what was going on. After 9 spins, exactly 9 spins, they all got the same last 2 rolls, verifying that in fact it was rigged. This really makes you begin to wonder if the rest of it is this way as well. Video games are something a large majority of us enjoy doing in our spare time or even on a professional level, such as esports, where they play to be the best and win large amounts of money at the end of it. With each passing year, more of these microtransactions and especially loot boxes are plaguing our games, decreasing the quality of them and overall just sucking the fun out of it. What worries me the most, and it should you as well, is how they are able to find a loophole around the legal definition of gambling and allows ratings such as T or M on games that reflect gambling itself. This is very bad when it comes to children because it gets them addicted to gambling at an early age, which could potentially affect their choices later on in life. For example, it could hurt them financially. The ESRB needs to properly label video games with loot boxes, intense violence, and more. They need to structure their rating system better and update it to modern day gaming. While loot boxes may not look like slot machines, that's exactly what they are. One more spin, one more purchase. That's how it starts, and you fall too far and realize you spent hundreds of dollars. Something needs to change, and more people need to speak up about these systems before it goes further than it already has. For now, loot boxes are generally cosmetic only items, but what about the future? Thank you.